What's going on, everybody? A few weeks ago, I dropped a video doing my top 10 tips that changed my disc golfing life, essentially. These are the best 10 tips that I had heard over the course of my career playing disc golf, and I wanted to share with you. Now, I didn't know if anybody would get any use out of those tips. I'm not a professional by any means. I just thought I'd like to share them with people, but I actually got a lot of positive feedback. Not only did people really enjoy the video, but I had people coming up to me in real life and telling me that a certain tip that I gave helped their game. I never expected that. I was honestly kind of blown away. Like I said, not even all the tips were mine. Most of them were ones I heard from other people, but I was very glad to be the vessel that could share them and help people's game. That was super cool. So I knew I had to do another one of these videos just because, hey, maybe I've got a few more useful tips that somebody could hear to make them just a little bit better at disc golf, and that would be awesome. So today we are doing 10 more tips that changed my disc golfing game and might just change yours. Just like last time, to keep this interesting, I'm out here at Sandusky Park. I'm gonna play 10 holes, and for each hole, I'm gonna give a new tip, maybe have an opportunity to demonstrate a little bit and just explain it, and maybe it can apply to you. Hopefully, at least one of these tips applies to your game in some way. That would be great. I'll make the disclaimer that I made last time. I'm not a professional disc golfer by any means, but I have been playing for over 10 years. I've absorbed a lot of information from players much better than me, and so I'm just trying to relay what I have learned, stuff that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of right away, but it's helped me a lot, because maybe that stuff can help you too. So let's not delay any further. We're gonna just get this thing started. I'm out here, like I said, at Sandusky Park today. Forgive the fact that it looks like a zombie apocalypse. It's very foggy this morning. Luckily, most of these holes are short, so it shouldn't really matter. Also, if my voice sounds a little hoarse, that would be because I was at a college football game last night. It got a little intense. Alrighty, we're gonna kick it off with tip number one, and this one is super, super important, and that is play within your game. Now, this is one of those tips that a lot of people are going to, I think a lot of the tips I give in these videos are like this, where you're gonna hear it, you're gonna be like, yeah, everybody knows that, like that's just common sense in disc golf, you should always play within your game. But how many of you actually do it? Let me give a real life example of how I saw this play out recently, okay? Over on the Foundation Disc Golf YouTube channel, we've done a little series called Break 86. This series is where we would surprise our friend Connor with the opportunity to break 86 at New London, a very difficult course, in order to win a huge prize. Connor had 2 previous attempts at this challenge and failed, wasn't even close to the finish line. I think on the second attempt, he didn't even make it past hole 14 before we had to call it quits. But then on the third attempt, just recently, if you haven't seen the video, you should go check it out. He changed up his whole strategy and he broke 86 with relative ease. And it's all about buying into the fact that playing within your game is sometimes boring. It is sometimes not flashy at all, and it may even seem dumb to you at sometimes to throw the shot that you know deep down you might have to, but it is so effective. Basically, what Connor did on that course was he knew he had to stay in bounds, keep the disc in play, and that was his path to success. So he threw, I would say, 75% hyzers with the exact same disc all over that course. It might not have been the prettiest thing, but guess what? It worked and he won the huge prize. So that's what I'm here to tell you with this tip is, even if you've already known and heard of the idea of playing within your game, have you really bought into it? Ask yourself that question. Example being, hole number 1 here. This hole asks for a forehand up high to the left, the basket being straight ahead there. The straight backhand is obviously a play, but the high forehand, if you have it, is super easy. There's nothing in your way. A lot of people play that shot. However, me knowing my game, I need to throw that backhand up the middle. That's just how it is. The forehand, my percentage chance with it is not good. Sometimes I will still throw it anyways because I'm trying to almost prove myself wrong, but I know deep down, I just need to throw a straight backhand. I'm much better at that shot. Yeah, that's a shot for me. Did overthrow that though. Just gonna give you a quick disclaimer. My putting is currently incredibly broken, so I'm sorry for anything you have to see today. Such as that. Gross. Or that. Yeah, you might as well just hit the double tap on the screen when I go to line up a putt, unless you want to be grossed out. Anyways, on to the next hole. Okay, hole number 2 and tip number 2. This is one I think I always knew deep down, but I've just seen proven true, especially as of late, and that is RPMs matter. Now, once again, I need to dive into this a little bit because we all know the disc has to spin to move, but it's more important than you might even think. The quest for distance in disc golf is never ending, and everybody's after it. They're always looking for new ways to try and get distance. And I think at the core of that, people are trying to throw the disc harder, right? Speed equals distance. That seems straightforward enough. Something that I've learned recently with the development of new disc technology, or I should say new disc golf technology, such as the Tech Disc, is that RPMs play a way bigger role in the equation than speed ever could. I found this out when throwing a disc with a tech disc on the bottom. If you don't know what the tech disc is, there's a few products out there like it, but basically it's a chip that goes on the bottom of the disc and it can give you data off of the disc, and two of those pieces of data being the miles per hour the disc was thrown at, and also the RPM, so the amount of spin, rotations per minute on the disc. When I was throwing the disc in our warehouse into a net and I was kind of reading into the data, I was getting around 70 miles per hour at the fastest I could throw, and maybe around 1,300 top on RPMs. And I didn't really know what that meant. I was just like, okay, I guess 70 miles per hour plus 1,300 RPMs equals about the 450 feet that I can throw max distance. What then shocked me is then when I watched a distance competition that went down at the Preserve recently. They happened to be using similar technology on their disc to display the numbers, and what I saw shocked me. I was watching guys throw discs at the same or even less miles per hour than I was and getting 100 to 150 to almost 200 feet more distance. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, this couldn't be right. What is wrong with these numbers? But then I noticed the RPMs were so much higher. These professional disc golfs, not all of them have Cannon arms, but what they're able to do is generate 16, 17, 1800 RPMs on these discs, much more than I could, even with 10 years of playing disc golf. And that is what is the ultimate factor with distance, not just speed. Yes, of course, speed is always part of the equation, but RPMs are so much more important. So I say all this to say, if you are trying to find distance and you feel like you are getting a lot of speed, you've kind of capped out your speed, you don't know what to do, try to work on snap and spin and getting more rotation on the disc. You're gonna find that you're gonna be able to get more distance with less effort just by trying to find ways to get more spin on the disc, trying to snap that disc better. That is ultimately the key. So I just thought that was super interesting. Definitely an awakening I had in my quest for distance. So yeah, hole 2 here, it is 230 feet around the corner. Just gotta kind of throw a skip shot. That should be pretty good. Big skip. Curl around the tree. Might actually be able to make that one. Now, what would be really sick would be if I could figure out how to get RPMs on these putts. Okay, our third tip on hole 3 here has to do with putting, so we'll get to the green first. Got ourselves a 250-foot forehand here. Gonna chuck the Firebird. Big skip. Decent skip. Oh, good roll too. Whew, that thing is stable. It's actually very fitting where this shot landed because my next tip, tip number 3, is practice more 20-footers. Now, as you know, I'm the last person to be giving putting advice, but this is more about putting theory and putting practice than it is actual mechanics, you know, so it's a little bit different. Now, I kind of take this tip a little bit from traditional golf, because in traditional golf, a lot of people will tell you the 3-foot putt is the most important one to practice, okay? That's the putt that you're expected to make, that'll add up a lot on the course, but especially when you're newer to the game, you're gonna miss probably more than you make, honestly. I think that the 20-foot putt equates to that pretty perfectly in disc golf. I think the 20-foot putt is arguably the most common putt you're gonna have on the course. You're gonna have it for important birdie putts, for huge par safe putts, even bogey safe putts, and whatever else it might be. They just pop up all over the place because if you are a reasonably skilled disc golfer, even if you're not, that's just kind of a good margin of error to think that a lot of your shots are gonna land around 20 feet. You know, you're not gonna throw them all perfect and land on the pole. And if you're throwing a decent shot, 20 feet is pretty reasonable. But here's what I think is the most important part about practicing 20-foot putts. What is one of the hardest putts to make in disc golf as far as pressure and nerves? The comebacker putt, okay? You've just run your putt. You now have a comebacker staring you down and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't miss another one and give up another stroke. It's what leads a lot of people to barely even try putting the first one at all. Okay, the comebacker putt, if you run a putt well and happen to miss or get a little skip or roll, 20 feet is quite often where you will land, especially if you're running a little bit of a longer putt. That's why practicing these 20-foot putts is everything, because if you can get them down to where they're automatic, you're now gonna be free to run all of those other putts that you wouldn't before. And not having any added pressure along with all the other pressure you're gonna have putting on the green makes a huge difference. So if I can step up to a 35-footer knowing I can do whatever I want with this, because even if I land at 20 foot, that's a guarantee, that's huge for your game. So that's why I really give this tip about practicing 20-footers, is because not only is it a very common putt, but trying to eliminate the comebacker nerves from your game is so, so valuable. And I'll be honest, of course, it's not something I'm good at. I'm not good at these 20-foot putts. There have maybe been a few stretches in my career where I get to a place where I'm very confident in this putt. And I love being there, trying to get back, in fact. So there's my tip, practice 20-footers a lot. I know a lot of you probably already do. In fact, if you have confined space to practice putt in, that's all you can practice. But just know if that's the case, you're in a great spot. Drill those 20-footers, make them automatic. The best thing you can do in any kind of golf is expand your automatic putt zone. That will make you so much better. Now watch as I do just that. See? No worries. Okay, it's hole number 4 now. Time for tip number 4. And tip number 4 is develop trick shots. Now I know what you're thinking. No, this is not the kind of stuff you see in a Dude Perfect or Brodie Smith video. The kind of trick shots I'm talking about are the more uncommon and utility shots that you might use in a disc golf round. This would include any kind of roller, whether it be forehand or backhand, any kind of overhand, tomahawks or thumbers. This also includes skip shots, grenades, any kind of shot that's a little less common, but you can use in a pinch. Developing these kind of shots might be the last thing on your mind, but once you unlock them, all of a sudden the course looks different to you. And what I mean by that is, if you get in a tough lie and you don't have a certain shot in your bag, let's just say a thumber, you're never gonna see a thumber line. If all you have is a stock backhand, for example, you're only gonna be looking at backhand lines. So what you'll find is if you develop all these shots, you're gonna step up to tees, you're gonna get to scramble lies, and all of a sudden, you're gonna see all these new shot opportunities that you never saw before because you can now make the disc do different things. The most lethal players on the disc golf course can get as many flights out of this Frisbee as they possibly can. They can make it fly in so many different ways. They can make it interact on the ground in so many different ways. That is what's gonna make you effective on the course. Now, of course, you have to execute them as well, but I'd recommend just at least getting a rudimentary version of each one of these utility shots down, just so you have them as an option, just so you can consider them on the course. Because sometimes there might be a thumber line, for example, and it might not require a really good thumber, it just needs the disc to fly like a thumber might fly, pan out and fade in that manner. The first shots I would consider working on are at least one basic overhand shot and probably a backhand roller, because a backhand roller, while very difficult, once you get that shot down, you're gonna start seeing roller lines everywhere and they can be very effective. So yeah, develop a few trick shots and it makes the game more fun. Hole 4 here, trying to get through this tunnel, skip a little left at the end. I'm gonna throw this Kristen Tatar Grace. Haven't really thrown it a ton yet. Oh, that's nice. A little flip up, get left. Oh, threw a little too far. That's all right, that was a pretty nice flight. Let's see if we can keep the putter hot here. Oh, that's in the water. Sit. Nope, right back to cold. All right, we're halfway here on hole number 5, and tip number 5 is simply mind the ground. So let me explain this. I have seen so many times in disc golf, somebody that I'm playing with, or myself, I've done this many a time too, throw a shot that involves the ground and have the ground mess up said shot and me blame the ground when I knew all along what was gonna happen. And that might sound confusing, so let me explain a little further. Let's say, for example, there we are in a grassy field. I'm throwing an upshot. I want the disc to skip a little bit towards the basket. The grass is very long and plush and bushy. I wait for the disc to skip on the perfect skip angle and it grabs in the grass. And then I get mad, why didn't that skip? Where was my skip? Oh, I didn't get my skip. Well, you knew you weren't gonna get a skip. There was long, thick grass. Another example would be if I were to lay down a roller in the woods and I'm really excited about this roller, perfect line, and then it hits a stick and bounces off or it runs into a rock and I'm like, oh, so unlucky. Well, you just threw a roller in the woods. What did you think was gonna happen? You have to consider the ground when you're throwing a shot that involves it. A lot of disc golf takes place in the air. That's great. All you have to worry about is the wind, maybe the density of the air, if you're really getting into it, elevation, if you're a scientist. But most of the time it's just the wind. So sometimes when we try to involve the ground and it doesn't cooperate, we get a little frustrated, but you gotta look both ways and use it to your advantage too. Let's say you see there's a few greens at this course that have sand all around them. Well, that means I can take a much more aggressive stab at it because I know the disc is gonna dig, it's not gonna skip anywhere. You know, you can use these things to your advantage too. So next time you're gonna throw a shot like a skip shot or a roller, or even just an approach that you're expecting to do something, make sure the ground is on the same page as you, because if you get the reaction you didn't want, yes, sometimes there's just bad luck involved, but a lot of times you just didn't think it through quite enough. All right, I know I do it all the time. Hole 5 here, huge hyzer, 360, going with the toasted marshmallow here, just cutting it loose. Oh, I love that. That is a good one. Get past that tree. Ooh! Oh my gosh. That was the best drive I've ever thrown on this hole. That's like parked. Whew. Always nice when you barely have to putt. And yet I was still sweating over that one. Alrighty, hole number 6. And tip number 6 is cater your plastic to the weather. So what do I mean by that? We're in the winter season now. It's getting a little colder out. Pretty nice day today actually, but relatively it's getting colder outside. It's also wet outside here too. So I've kind of got two factors going on. And sometimes certain plastics aren't going to function as well in this weather. Now, this isn't for everybody. Some people, you might not care. You might think all my discs feel fine in all weather, it's not a big deal. But if you ever find yourself getting to a course and it's really, really cold outside and you're like, man, this stiff plastic I have hurts my hands, tough to hold on to, might be time to change it up. Or let's say you're playing a tournament and it's really rainy outside and you just have all this premium plastic in your bag and you can't get a grip on it. Might be another sign to change things up. One of the great things about disc golf is just about every mold out there has many different plastics that we can choose from. So a simple thing to do might be, okay, I've got these putters I really like. Let's say I've got Rainmakers and I like the stiff ones in the summer. I like to keep the disc stiff in my hand, but as soon as it gets to winter, they just get a little too much. I need a little more give. I can't quite feel the putter. My hands are cold. Well, maybe it's time to try just a softer version of that exact same putter. You're not really changing anything. You're just adjusting to the temperature. You're catering your plastic to that weather, and you're taking advantage of what we have in the sport, which is different plastics. You could do the reverse thing if you're using softer putters, and then when it gets to summer, they just get too gummy and you can't really get a consistent flight. We'll move up to a stiffer plastic. If it's rainy and you have all premium discs, throw a few baseline discs in there. I've played tournaments where it's super rainy and I toss a few baseline, like just steady go-to discs in my bag, and I end up throwing them the whole round just because having a good grip on the disc is better than having the exact flight pattern you may have wanted for that shot. If you can't throw it straight, it's not gonna matter anyways. So next time you're playing in some adverse weather, just think about catering your discs to that weather. It might help you out there. All right, hole 6, 270. I'm gonna try and throw hyzer. I got this Ironstone, this Discmania. It's a C-Line P3X, Color Glow C-Line P3X, pretty sick. Came in those Lost Stones boxes. I just gotta say, shout out to them. That is like the coolest thing ever. So cool. Like, you should definitely not send me another box. Yes, here we go. Oh, I threw it up on the hillside a little bit. Come back. Holy cow, that thing goes so far. I usually go mid on this hole. I think I just went long. That thing goes really far. I've never thrown any of these P3Xs before, but that was like an effortless 300-foot hyzer. I'm 30 long in the basket. And you guys know I'm not some kind of masher out here. I don't have crazy distance. Kind of reminds me of an Envy, where just goes super far and glides left. That's pretty neat. So much hyzer on that. Ugh. I gotta figure out how to putt flat. It's killing me. On to the 7th hole, and tip number 7 is play courses that actually make you better. Now, disclaimer, this is one of those tips that is really relating to the serious disc golfer who's trying to get better at disc golf like quickly. This isn't for somebody who just wants to have a fun time, play whatever course you want at the end of the day. But if you're really trying to get better, this tip could help you. I see a lot of people walk into the disc golf shop, the foundation shop, and talk about playing New London. Usually these people are from out of town, so they're just trying to play it as a tourist thing. But a lot of times I see guys who haven't been playing disc golf for super long and maybe aren't the best yet. They're still working on getting better, and they're going straight out to these really difficult courses and just getting crushed. One of the things I attribute to myself getting into disc golf the way I did and really loving it is I just happened to grow up playing, the only course I played at home was a par 3 course. I think in disc golf, it's important to have some positive reinforcement, and I think you're only gonna get better if you can feel excited about playing disc golf. So starting at a course that's your level, that you can execute shots at, is gonna be a great way to start. If you go to a course that is just clearly outside of your skill level, it's way too difficult. You might learn a few lessons, but you're just gonna get beat up out there. Work on dominating the courses that are at your skill level first, and then move up the ladder. That is, if you're trying to improve like intermittently. Now, this is also twofold, like a lot of these tips. That also means once you do get really good at those easy courses, you need to push yourself, you need to move up to the more difficult ones. Because if you're shooting 16 under at your local pitch and putt and think you're good at disc golf, you're gonna be in for a surprise when you go to a real course. It's kind of similar to tournament play, how you should get confident in a division before you move up a division. You can think about courses the same way. Get confident at a certain level of course and then move up. And those first few rounds might be tough, but you should have developed the skills as long as you're making the correct step up. You're not going too far up the ladder, that you can function at the next level course and slowly learn from there. So once again, this is kind of directed towards a really competitive, serious disc golfer, and I'm not telling you not to go play whatever course you want, but if you're trying to really improve, maybe take that into consideration. All right, hole 7, another hyzer, 360 feet. Going with the Blizzard disc. This thing's pretty sick. It's actually an Honor. Now come back left. That one's a little straighter than my other one. Big skip. I love this hole because you never have any idea if you got to skip. Like that's either 40 feet or 10 feet, or neither, because I'm stupid. About 20 feet, so I was not right on either guess. I mean, oh, I'm gonna get demonetized for that. Oh, somebody help me. So I've jumped over to hole 13. I'm trying to move back that way so that I don't get super far away from the parking lot. But our 8th tip, nonetheless, is thumb position matters. So I'm not sure how they're teaching disc golf these days, but when I was taught to play disc golf, the thumb position wasn't really enforced a ton. Some people would say to put your thumb where kind of the rim meets the flight plate. Some people would just kind of give you like, think of it like a clock and put it at a certain time. But you know, a lot of people just end up putting their thumb where they're comfortable. Well, when I got to college, the theory started floating around of this idea of changing your thumb position on the disc. So I kind of messed around with it a little bit and I found that there is some cool ideas behind this. So the general principle of your thumb position is it's going to change where your pressure is on the disc. Now, because you're spinning the disc, ultimately the further that thumb gets to the edge of the rim, the more pressure is going to be on the edge of the rim. That should generate more spin. While as it gets further away, probably less spin. So you may have already jumped to this conclusion, but even though RPMs do matter, like I said earlier, there are some times where you actually want less spin on a disc if you're throwing an upshot, for example, and there are sometimes you want more spin on a disc, sometimes also on an upshot or maybe on a long distance drive. It also can change the way that you feel comfortable. Like some people really like to dig into the middle of the disc. That's going to help them throw further versus out here they don't have as much of a grip. All I'm really saying is experiment with this. Because another thing you can do is if you move your thumb in, it's actually easier to push down on the flight plate. So if you're struggling with throwing nose up shots, maybe give that a try. Maybe move your thumb in a little bit, try to apply some pressure because it's gonna naturally wanna push more down rather than over here, you can't really get any push down on the flight plate. So if you never mess around with thumb position, give it a shot. It shouldn't be detrimental to your form. It's just kind of a little wrinkle to throw in and it can do some interesting things for your game. All right, straight shot here. I don't even know if you can see the basket. It's like straight ahead, 270. Going with the Ironstone again, the P3X. That's pretty good. I like that disc. It's effortless. I would like it on the record that I did warn you about my putt. All right, on the next hole now. And tip number 9, only 2 tips left to go. Tip number 9, this is a very important one. And this tip is incorporate a camera into your practice. I cannot stress to you how frustrating disc golf practice can be when you have no idea what is happening outside of what you can feel and what you can see on your own body while throwing, which is not much. You can try over and over and over again to work out the same kinks, the same bad habits, and it can be very frustrating because you don't know exactly what's going on. Having that second eye, a camera especially, because you can slow things down, is so crucial. There could be something in your form that is incredibly easy to fix and very obvious that you just couldn't see because it was behind you. It was something with your back leg that you just weren't quite visualizing correctly. And I know you might be thinking, well, easy for you to say, you know, you do disc golf on YouTube, you see yourself throw all the time. Well, I stink, first of all, so take that back. And second of all, it is easier than ever to do this. If you have a phone with a camera and you've got $10 to go spend at Walmart. The tripod that I use to shoot these videos cost me $10 at Walmart. I'm not even kidding you. Then you can use a camera to film yourself practice and it's going to be just an eye-opening experience. I'm sure a lot of you already do this, but just in case you don't, just try throwing from different angles, face on, from the back, from the front, from the other side, all different angles of you throwing, and yeah, it's gonna be the best analysis you've ever had if you've never done it. I always throw to that same spot on this hole, man. Got to turn the disc. Split grip. That was trash. All right, one more tip. Okay, I'm here on 17 and it's time for our final tip. This is quite a good one. The final tip, tip number 10, is go less stable to get more left. And when I say left, I'm talking about a right-hand backhand shot, most common, a hyzer, getting as left as possible. This advice seems very confusing at first. You're thinking the overstable discs go left, the understable ones turn over. What are you talking about, Trevor? Best analogy I can think of is, have you ever seen the movie Cars? When Doc Hudson is trying to explain to Lightning McQueen how to drift around the corner, he said, if you're going fast enough, sometimes you have to turn right to go left. One of those pieces of advice where if you don't understand the theory, it just sounds like nonsense, but it works. So basically, if I'm trying to throw a hyzer on this hole here and get really far left, if I throw an overstable disc, it will go left, but it's gonna run out of steam and kind of crash to the ground. That's what really overstable discs do. They don't glide a ton, they crash. So you can only get so far left with them. And if you throw them on hyzer to try and get even more left, it almost just wants to make them crash even quicker. So what you do is you take a disc that has a little more understability to it, such as this Grace. You're not looking for the flippiest disc in your bag, but something that has some give to it. Because the idea here is I'm trying to throw this disc on hyzer and let it slowly flip as it moves left. Because what you're gonna get here is you're gonna get a shot that stays in the air longer but is moving left the entire time. You can get ridiculously far left with this technique if you hit it right and get the right disc, because what you're looking for is a disc that slowly flips and is moving left the whole time but never gets to flat. You want it to be moving left the entirety of the time, and especially not getting to turn. So yeah, I'm going to demonstrate that hopefully. I've got this Grace and just show you that a disc that flips a little can move left significantly. You obviously have to give it enough hyzer to accommodate as well. That's literally perfect. Didn't flip all the way, and it's gonna move a ton left the whole way in its flight. So there you go. If I throw an overstable disc flat, it's not gonna move as far, it's gonna fall out of the sky. And I'm not even the best at the shot. If you ever see Paul McBeth throw the shot, it'll blow your mind. He can take discs that are so flippy, throw them like straight vertical, and have them move like 300 feet left. It's insane. So if you've never tried that out, because to a newer disc golfer especially, you just may never have tried that, give it a shot. It might blow your mind. Yeah, I'm gonna keep working on that whole putting thing. Oh gosh, I think I'm gonna do a video sometime in the future where I just putt like hundreds of times every day, because yeah, it's bad. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully one of these tips kind of resonated with you. Let me know in the comments down below if you heard one that really surprised you and that you're gonna try out, or if there's one that you heard about that you have heard in the past and that worked for you. I always like hearing people's stories with these tips. If you disagree with one, let me know as well. I'm not an expert. I'm willing to talk these things through. I think these ones were pretty sound, but if you have a theory that says otherwise, I'd like to hear it as well. Embrace debate, you know? If you enjoy this kind of coaching style video, it's not something I want to do every week, but if you enjoyed it, then let me know and I will continue to do it. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to be doing a subscriber giveaway at 20,000 subs, so if you're not subscribed yet, make sure to hit that button down below, and I will see you next Monday with another upload.